these three things. And I would also imagine that anyone who's coming to us for help is probably missing one of these three things. And so part of our job is to understand that if they're missing one of these three things, that we have the abilities and the skills to be able to offer solutions to help them get to one of these three things. All right? We'll skip that. All right. So I just want to talk a little bit about my approach. The first part of my approach is that people can learn, change, and grow. Who I am at 41 is not necessarily who I was at 17. Thank God. Right? So we can learn, change, and grow. We can adapt to the environments that we're in. That's why we're here and the dinosaurs are not. Right? All human behavior is goal-directed, and I pointed to you what those goals are. That's safety, significance, and belonging. Everything that we do is to try to attain our goal. And people do what makes sense to them, even if what? Even if it doesn't make sense to you and I. Right? So they do it because it makes sense to them. And lastly, an attitude is a response to a goal. What have you been taught about what an attitude is? How many people have been accused of having attitudes, or you've met somebody with an attitude? Right? What is an attitude? What's an attitude? It's what? It's negativity and attitude. It doesn't have to be negative. It can be a person's demeanor or a specific behavior. Reaction to a perception. So my parents were crazy because I would have what they would call an attitude, and they would say stuff to me like, "Boy, fix your face." You know, what does that mean? You know, or they do something real crazy, and they'd send me to my room. They say, "Go to your room till you learn how to act." And so I'd be in my room for a while, and then I'd step out into the hallway. To be or not to be, right? I spent a lot of time in my room because that's not what they were talking about, right? And unfortunately, my parents weren't articulate enough to actually tell me what it was they were talking about when they were talking about my attitude. Until one day, I figured it out myself. So my dad is a pastor, and so he was the pastor of our church. And so on Sunday, we would go to church from 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. We'd stop at 3 o'clock for chicken, not because we're black, but because chicken is delicious. All right? So church on Sunday all day. So Friday night, I asked my dad for the car, and what does my dad say? Because he loves me. No, he says, yes, he loves me. Right? So I get the car, I hang out with my friends, I put gas in the car, I come home before curfew, and my father says, I have what kind of an attitude? A good attitude or a positive attitude, right? And what do I say about my dad's attitude? That he also has a positive or good attitude, right? Sunday comes along. My best friend Dexter calls me at noon and says, Andre, can you pick me up for the movies? What do I know about Sundays? Right? But you know what? I'm young, I'm invincible, and Jesus is my friend. And if you call on him, he'll answer prayers. So I go up to my dad and I say, Dad, can I borrow the car? And my dad says, no. Not only does he say no, but he gives me a lecture about how I'm leading people to hell. Right? The ultimate negative consequence in my household was that don't do the dishes, you're going to hell. Right? You didn't clean your room, going to hell. Right? So that was the ultimate consequence. And the funny thing about my parents was they would allow you to go to hell on your own, or they could show you the way. Right? So as a response to that interaction, I would say that my dad had what kind of an attitude? A negative or a bad attitude. And he would say that I had what kind of an attitude? A bad or negative attitude. So what is it that actually determines one's attitude? I thought I heard it.
Perception.
Your accomplishment of a goal. Anybody had teenagers, been around teenagers, been a teenager? Right? When teenagers get what they want, it's almost as if they purr. Right? They want to cuddle and right? But deny a teenager access to something that they want, and you're like, do I know you? What kind of creature are you? You know, all this crazy stuff, right? But when they get what they want, they're just as pleasant and sweet, right? They want to hug you and kiss on you, right? Why? Because they have access to their goal. So, if I encounter a client or a coworker who has a bad attitude, what do I know about them for sure?
They're not getting their goals.
They're not getting their goals, right? And so then I can kick in helper mode and respond to them in one of two ways. The first and the easiest way to help them have a good attitude is to help them do what? Accomplish their goal. Easy. Right? Find